The night was unusually quiet in the small town of Willow Creek, Montana. Ethan Cole had always enjoyed the solitude of his farm, tucked away from the hustle and bustle of city life. The only sounds that usually filled the air were the soft rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. But tonight, something was different. As Ethan stepped outside to check on his cattle, a strange streak of light tore across the sky, brighter than any shooting star he'd ever seen. It moved with unnatural speed, leaving behind a trail of shimmering green and blue sparks. Before Ethan could process what he was seeing, the object plummeted toward the dense forest just beyond his property line. The impact shook the ground beneath his feet, sending a shockwave through the trees. For a moment, everything went silent. Then came the faint crackle of flames and the smell of scorched earth. Ethan hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution. His first instinct was to call the authorities, but something about the event felt otherworldly. He grabbed a flashlight and his rifle, not because he expected trouble, but because it made him feel safer, and headed toward the source of the disturbance. The forest was eerily still as he approached the crash site. Twisted metal jutted out from the smoldering crater, glowing faintly in hues of silver and violet. It wasn't like any aircraft Ethan had ever seen. Fragments of the wreckage seemed to hum with energy, pulsating softly as though alive. At first glance, it looked more like a piece of alien technology from one of those science fiction movies he occasionally watched late at night. As Ethan circled the debris, his flashlight beam caught movement inside the wreckage. He froze, heart pounding in his chest. Slowly, he edged closer, peering into the twisted remains of what appeared to be some kind of cockpit. What he saw took his breath away. There, crumpled against the controls, was a figure unlike anything Ethan could have imagined. She, because even in her battered state, there was no mistaking her femininity, was humanoid but not quite human. Her skin shimmered faintly, like moonlight reflected off water, and her large, almond-shaped eyes glowed faintly despite being half-closed. Long, silvery hair spilled over her shoulders, matted with dirt and ash. She wore a sleek, form-fitting suit that seemed to ripple with color, shifting between shades of gold and turquoise. Ethan's mind raced. Was this real? Could aliens actually exist? He shook himself out of his stupor when he noticed her trembling. She was injured, her breathing shallow and labored. Without thinking, he reached out and gently touched her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. "Help, please," she whispered, her voice barely audible but unmistakably desperate. Her accent was strange, yet her words were clear enough for him to understand. Ethan didn't know what to do. This wasn't exactly covered in the farmer's handbook. Part of him wanted to run, to pretend he'd never seen this. But another part, the part that had grown up helping neighbors during hard times, knew he couldn't leave her here. Whatever she was, whoever she was, she needed help. Carefully, he slid his arms under her surprisingly light body and lifted her out of the wreckage. She winced but didn't protest, clutching weakly at his jacket as if afraid he might change his mind. As he carried her back toward his truck, Ethan couldn't help but glance over his shoulder at the mysterious craft. It pulsed faintly, almost as if it were watching him. By the time they reached his farmhouse, the adrenaline had worn off, leaving Ethan feeling uneasy. He laid her down on the couch in his living room, covering her with a blanket. Her injuries weren't immediately life-threatening, though she had several cuts and bruises. Still, there was something unsettling about how fragile she seemed, despite her otherworldly appearance. She stirred slightly, her glowing eyes opening again. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice tinged with both gratitude and exhaustion. "I am Lizera." "Ethan," he replied awkwardly, unsure if introductions were appropriate given the circumstances. What happened? Are you?" "I am not of your world," she interrupted, saving him from stumbling further. "My ship malfunctioned. I escaped, but they followed me." "They?" Ethan asked, his brow furrowing. Her expression darkened. "Slavers. They hunt my kind. They will stop at nothing. Ethan sat back, trying to process what she was saying. Slavers, from another planet. It sounded insane, yet here she was, sitting on his couch, looking every bit like someone, or something, out of a dream, or a nightmare. I owe you my life, Lizera continued, breaking the silence. If you allow it, I will serve you, in return for your kindness. Serve me, Ethan echoed, startled. You don't have to do that. You're hurt. You need rest. But Lizera shook her head firmly. It is tradition among my people. A debt must be repaid. Please, let me stay. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. This was all too much to take in. An alien crash lands on his farm, begs for refuge, and now wants to become his servant. It sounded like the plot of a bad sci-fi novel. Yet, looking at her determined face, he realized she meant every word. All right, he said finally, deciding it was better to deal with one problem at a time. You can stay for now, but we'll figure things out later, okay? Lizera nodded, relief washing over her features. As Ethan turned to fetch some water and bandages, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just changed forever. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the universe and himself. The next morning, Ethan woke up to the smell of fresh coffee brewing in his kitchen. For a moment, he thought it had all been a dream. The glowing alien, the crash site, the strange conversation about slavers. But when he walked into the living room, there she was. Lizera sat quietly on the couch, her shimmering skin catching the early sunlight streaming through the window. She looked better than she had the night before, though faint bruises still marked her delicate features. Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. You made coffee? Lizera nodded, holding up a mug with both hands as if testing its weight. I observed your actions last night, she explained softly. It seemed simple enough. Ethan blinked in surprise. He hadn't realized she'd been paying such close attention while he tended to her injuries. Still, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. An alien making coffee in his kitchen. It was surreal, to say the least. Well, thanks, he said hesitantly, taking a sip from his own mug. The coffee was surprisingly good, strong, and slightly sweet, just how he liked it. So, what now? Lizera set her mug down carefully, folding her hands in her lap. As I said, I wish to repay my debt. You may assign me tasks, anything you require. Ethan frowned. Look, I'm not sure how things work where you're from, but around here, people don't usually take servants because someone owes them a favor. Besides, you're injured. You should focus on getting better. Her expression softened, though there was a hint of determination in her glowing eyes. I understand your hesitation, Ethan, but this is my way. To refuse would dishonor us both. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Arguing with her felt pointless. She clearly wasn't going to let this go. All right, fine. If it means that much to you, I guess you can help out around the farm. But nothing too strenuous, okay? A small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Thank you. Over the next few days, Ethan began to see just how useful Lizera could be. She started with simple chores like sweeping the floor and washing dishes, but even these mundane tasks were performed with an efficiency that left him amazed. She moved with grace and precision, completing jobs in half the time it would take a human. Her strength became evident when she effortlessly lifted heavy sacks of feed or repaired broken tools with ease. But what truly astonished Ethan was her ability to adapt. Within hours of stepping outside, she had learned the basics of feeding cattle and collecting eggs. By the end of the first week, she was working alongside him as if she'd spent her entire life on a farm. One afternoon, as they worked together stacking hay bales in the barn, Ethan finally broke the silence. You're not like any alien I've ever heard of, he joked lightly, trying to ease the tension between them. Lizera tilted her head, her luminous eyes meeting his. And you are not like any human I expected to meet. Oh yeah, Ethan chuckled. What did you expect? She paused, considering her words. I have seen your kind only through stories and recordings. Humans are portrayed as aggressive, selfish creatures who destroy without thought. Yet you saved me without question. Why? Ethan shrugged, leaning against the stack of hay. Maybe I'm just weird for a human. Or perhaps humans are capable of more than their reputation suggests. Lizera replied thoughtfully. Her words lingered in the air, making Ethan uncomfortable. He didn't want to think about humanity's flaws, not when faced with someone so different yet strangely familiar. Instead, he changed the subject. What about you? Where exactly are you from? Lizera's gaze drifted toward the horizon, her expression distant. My world is far away, a place of light and beauty, once thriving with life. My people were guardians of knowledge, protectors of balance, but we grew complacent, allowing greed to corrupt our society. Others came, seeking power over us. They hunted us, enslaved us, and drained our essence to fuel their machines. Ethan listened intently, his curiosity outweighing his skepticism. That's why you crashed here. You were running from them. Yes, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. They will stop at nothing to find me. Even now, they may be searching. The gravity of her situation hit Ethan like a ton of bricks. He had assumed her troubles ended once she landed on Earth, but now he realized the danger was far from over. Then why stay? Why risk bringing them here? Lizera turned to face him, her eyes filled with resolve. Because I believe there might still be hope, for me, and perhaps for others like me. Your planet feels untouched, untainted by the same mistakes that doomed mine. If given a chance, maybe humans can learn from our failures. Her words struck a chord deep within Ethan. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, just another guy trying to make ends meet. But hearing Lizera speak with such conviction made him wonder if he could do more, if he could help her somehow. Despite her growing familiarity with farm life, Lizera remained an enigma. There were moments when Ethan caught glimpses of something extraordinary beneath her calm exterior. Once, while watering the crops, he noticed plants near her glowing faintly after she touched them. Another time, a rusted plow seemed to repair itself overnight after she had examined it closely. When questioned, she simply smiled and said, "Some talents are best kept hidden." Though intrigued, Ethan decided not to push her for answers. After all, she had already entrusted him with more than he could have imagined. Trust, he realized, was fragile, and theirs was built on shaky ground. At night, when the work was done, and the stars stretched endlessly across the sky, they often sat together on the porch. Lizera would stare upward, her eyes reflecting the constellations. "Do you ever wonder what lies beyond?" she asked one evening. "All the time," Ethan admitted, "but I never thought I'd actually meet someone who knew." Lizera's smile was bittersweet. "There is much you do not know, Ethan Cole, and perhaps much you are not ready to understand." Her cryptic remark left him pondering long after she retired to her makeshift bed in the spare room. Despite her presence feeling increasingly natural, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were intertwined in ways neither of them fully grasped. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. His quiet, predictable existence was gone forever. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan found himself growing more accustomed to Lizera's presence. She had seamlessly integrated herself into his daily routine, proving to be an invaluable helper around the farm. Yet, despite her practical contributions, there was still an air of mystery surrounding her, something that Ethan couldn't quite shake off. It started with small things. One morning, as Ethan walked through the fields, he noticed something unusual. The crops near where Lizera had been working the previous day seemed healthier than ever before. Their leaves glistened faintly in the sunlight, as if they'd been coated with dew even though it hadn't rained. When he bent down to inspect them closer, he swore he saw a faint glow emanating from the soil beneath. Curious, Ethan confronted her later that evening. Lizera, he began cautiously, did you do something to the crops? She paused mid-task, her luminous eyes meeting his. For a moment, she looked almost guilty. I may have helped them, she admitted softly. Help them how? Ethan pressed, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. Lizera hesitated before answering. My people have a connection to life energy, an ability to nurture and heal. It is not something I can fully explain, but when I touch living things, I can enhance their vitality. Ethan stared at her, dumbfounded. So, you're saying you, what, made the plants grow faster? In a way, yes, she replied, her voice tinged with uncertainty. But it is more than that. I restore balance, strengthen their roots, ensure they thrive. He shook his head, trying to process this revelation. That's incredible. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I feared you might see me differently, she confessed, lowering her gaze. Ins often fear what they do not. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. He wanted to argue that he wasn't like other humans, that he trusted her, but deep down, he knew she had a point. If anyone else in Willow Creek discovered what she could do, they'd likely panic or try to exploit her. And given the slavers who were hunting her, drawing attention to her abilities would only put her in greater danger. Despite her initial reluctance, Lizera began opening up more about her past. During quiet evenings on the porch, she shared stories of her homeworld, a planet bathed in perpetual twilight, where towering crystalline forests hummed with energy and rivers flowed with liquid light. Her people, known as the Vailith, were once revered as guardians of harmony, using their unique gifts to maintain equilibrium in nature. But over time, greed and ambition corrupted their society, leading to civil war and eventual enslavement by neighboring species. They saw our essence, Lizera explained one night, her voice heavy with sorrow. The same energy that allows us to heal and nurture, it also powers advanced technology. To them, we were nothing more than resources to be harvested. Ethan listened intently, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. How could anyone treat another being like that? It is a cycle, Lizera said bitterly. Power breeds corruption, which leads to destruction. My people fell victim to it, just as yours risks doing. Her words struck a chord within him. As much as he hated to admit it, humanity wasn't so different from the slavers she described. Deforestation, pollution, wars over resources, all signs pointed to a species teetering on the edge of self-destruction. Was Lizera right? Could Earth follow the same path as her homeworld? One afternoon, while repairing a broken tractor, Ethan decided to test Lizera's abilities further. He handed her a rusted wrench, pretending it was beyond fixing. Think you can handle this? He asked casually. Lizera took the tool in her hands, examining it closely. At first, nothing happened. Then, a soft glow enveloped the metal, pulsating gently like a heartbeat. When the light faded, the wrench looked brand new, its surface smooth and gleaming. Ethan whistled in amazement. You really are something else. She smiled faintly, though there was a hint of sadness in her expression. These talents are both a gift and a curse. They make me valuable to those who wish to protect me, and to those who seek to harm me. Her words reminded Ethan of the looming threat, the slavers. Though no signs of pursuit had appeared since her arrival, he knew it was only a matter of time. He couldn't keep ignoring the fact that harboring Lizera put him, and possibly the entire town, at risk. Why haven't they shown up yet? He asked during dinner one evening. If they're tracking you, shouldn't they have found us by now? Lizera set down her fork, her expression grave. They will come. Perhaps they are waiting, gathering strength, or perhaps my crash disrupted their sensors temporarily. Either way, we cannot let our guard down. Ethan nodded grimly. Then we need to prepare. Fortify the farm, figure out a plan. We can't fight them directly, but maybe we can hold them off long enough for you to escape again. To his surprise, Lizera shook her head firmly. No, Ethan, I will not run anymore. If they come, I will face them. With your help. Her determination left him speechless. Despite everything she had endured, she refused to back down. It was both admirable and terrifying. Over the next few days, Ethan and Lazura worked together to fortify the farmhouse and surrounding property. They installed motion sensors, reinforced doors and windows, and created makeshift traps using tools and materials from the barn. Lazura contributed her own ideas, suggesting ways to use natural elements like water and electricity to deter intruders. At night, they practiced defensive strategies, with Lazura teaching Ethan how to channel his surroundings to his advantage. The key is adaptability, she told him one evening as they stood in the field, testing her energy manipulation skills. Even without powers, you are capable of great resilience. Ethan chuckled nervously, dodging a harmless pulse of light she sent his way. Easy for you to say. You've got superpowers. And you have courage, she countered, her glowing eyes locking onto his. That is just as powerful. As they trained, Ethan couldn't help but feel a growing bond between them. What had started as a reluctant alliance had evolved into something deeper, a mutual respect and trust that transcended their differences. He realized now that protecting Lazura wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about standing up for what was right. But as the preparations neared completion, an unsettling thought lingered in Ethan's mind. No matter how ready they were, facing interstellar slavers was no small feat. And when the inevitable confrontation came, would their combined efforts be enough? The calm that had settled over Ethan's farm was shattered one fateful evening. It began with a strange hum in the air, barely noticeable at first, but growing louder with each passing second. Ethan and Lazura were sitting on the porch, discussing their latest plans for defense when the sound reached an almost unbearable pitch. Lazura shot to her feet, her glowing eyes wide with alarm. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The slavers." Ethan felt his stomach drop. He had known this moment would come, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of it. "Are you sure?" he asked, though deep down, he already knew the answer. Lazura nodded sharply, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I can sense their energy signature. They've found us." Without wasting another second, they sprang into action. Ethan grabbed the rifle he kept loaded and ready, while Lazura darted inside to retrieve the crystalline device she carried everywhere. A small, pulsating shard of alien technology she referred to as her core. She claimed it contained vital information about her people and their enemies, and now more than ever, protecting it seemed crucial. As they finalized their preparations, ominous signs began appearing around the property. The first was a series of blackened crop circles near the edge of the forest, eerily symmetrical and devoid of life. Then came the strange symbols etched into the trees, glowing runes that pulsed faintly before fading away. Finally, eerie lights hovered silently above the tree line, casting long shadows across the fields. "It's a warning," Lazura said grimly, examining the nearest rune. "They're marking their territory, letting us know they mean business." Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle, scanning the darkness nervously. "How many are there?" "Impossible to say," she admitted, "but enough to overwhelm us if we aren't careful." Her words did little to ease his anxiety. Despite all their preparations, facing unknown adversaries armed with advanced technology felt like a losing battle. Still, Ethan refused to give up. Not after everything they had been through together. That night, the attack came swiftly and without mercy. The first sign was a deafening roar as sleek, insect-like drones descended from the sky, their metallic bodies gleaming under the moonlight. They moved with unnatural speed, firing beams of concentrated energy that scorched the earth wherever they struck. Ethan and Lazura took cover behind the fortified walls of the barn, returning fire with whatever weapons they had. Ethan aimed his rifle at the drones, managing to disable two before they adapted, dodging his shots with unnerving precision. Meanwhile, Lazura unleashed bursts of radiant energy from her hands, sending shockwaves that temporarily disabled several others. "They're learning," Ethan shouted over the chaos, reloading his rifle frantically. "We need to change tactics." Lizera nodded, her expression fierce. "Follow me." She led him toward the traps they had set earlier, hidden pits lined with sharpened stakes and tripwires, rigged to release torrents of water mixed with conductive materials. As the drones pursued them, several triggered the traps, exploding in showers of sparks and twisted metal. But for every drone they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Then came the soldiers. Dressed in sleek, armored suits that shimmered like liquid silver, they emerged from the woods in perfect formation. Each wielded weapons far beyond anything Ethan had ever seen, capable of disintegrating solid objects with a single blast. Their faces were obscured by helmets, giving them an almost mechanical appearance. "This is bad," Ethan muttered, ducking behind a bale of hay as a bolt of energy whizzed past his head. "Really bad." Lizera didn't respond. Instead, she stepped forward, raising her arms as if summoning some unseen force. A brilliant aura enveloped her body, pulsating brighter with each passing second. The ground beneath her feet began to tremble, and the air crackled with electricity. "Stay back," she commanded, her voice ringing with authority. "This is my fight." Before Ethan could protest, she unleashed a wave of pure energy that surged outward in all directions. The drones were obliterated instantly, reduced to smoldering fragments. Even the soldiers staggered backward, their armor sparking under the onslaught. But the victory was short-lived. As the light faded, Lizera collapsed to her knees, visibly weakened by the effort. Her skin dimmed, losing its usual luminescence, and her breathing became labored. "No," Ethan cried, rushing to her side. "You can't do this alone." "I must," she replied weakly, clutching the crystalline core tightly. "If I fall, promise me you'll protect it. Promise me." Ethan hesitated, torn between fear and determination. He couldn't lose her, not now, not after everything. Summoning every ounce of courage, he helped her to her feet, steadying her with one arm while gripping his rifle with the other. "We're not done yet," he said firmly. "Not by a long shot." Together, they retreated deeper into the farm, using the terrain to their advantage. Ethan activated the remaining traps, creating diversions that slowed the enemy's advance. Meanwhile, Lizera used her dwindling strength to erect barriers of energy, buying them precious time to regroup. Despite the odds, they managed to hold their ground. The combination of human ingenuity and alien power proved surprisingly effective, forcing the slavers to rethink their strategy. For now, the immediate threat had been neutralized, but both Ethan and Lizera knew this was only the beginning. Later that night, as they tended to their wounds in the safety of the farmhouse, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at Lizera's resilience. Though physically drained, her spirit remained unbroken. She sat by the window, staring out at the damaged landscape, her expression a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "They'll be back," she said quietly. "And next time, they'll bring reinforcements." Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll be ready. We survived tonight, didn't we? That's proof we can handle whatever comes our way." Lizera turned to look at him, her glowing eyes reflecting gratitude and something else: trust. In that moment, Ethan realized their bond had grown stronger than ever. They weren't just allies anymore. They were partners in every sense of the word. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The aftermath of the first attack left Ethan's farm in ruins. Scorch marks marred the fields, shattered drones littered the ground, and the once pristine barn was reduced to a charred skeleton. Despite their success in repelling the initial assault, both Ethan and Lizera knew they had only bought themselves a temporary reprieve. The slavers wouldn't give up so easily, not when their prize was within reach. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan surveyed the damage with a heavy heart. His home, the place he had poured years of sweat and effort into, was barely recognizable. Yet, as he glanced at Lizira sitting quietly on the porch steps, he realized the physical destruction paled in comparison to the emotional toll this ordeal was taking on her. Her shimmering skin had dulled significantly, and dark circles framed her glowing eyes. She looked exhausted, not just physically but spiritually drained. "We need to move," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. "They'll return soon, and next time, they won't underestimate us." Ethan frowned, kneeling beside her. "Move where? We can't exactly pack up and leave town without raising suspicion." Lizira shook her head, her expression grim. "Not far, just somewhere safer. The forest offers cover, natural defenses we can use to our advantage. If we stay here, we're sitting ducks." He hesitated, weighing her words. She was right. The open expanse of the farm made them vulnerable. But abandoning his home felt like surrendering part of himself. Still, what choice did they have? "All right," he agreed reluctantly, "but we'll need supplies and a plan." By mid-morning, they had gathered everything they could carry: food, water, tools, weapons, and the crystalline core that Lizira guarded so fiercely. Ethan loaded the essentials onto a makeshift cart pulled by one of his horses, while Lizira used her dwindling energy to create decoy traps around the property. If the slavers returned before they were gone, these distractions might buy them enough time to escape unnoticed. Their destination was an old hunting cabin deep in the woods, a secluded spot Ethan had discovered years ago during a particularly harsh winter. It wasn't much, but it offered shelter and relative isolation. As they trekked through the dense forest, Lizira walked silently beside him, her gaze scanning the trees for any sign of danger. "You okay?" Ethan asked after a while, noticing how pale she looked. "I will endure," she replied softly, though her voice lacked its usual strength. "My people are resilient. This is not the first time I've faced such trials." Ethan nodded, though her answer didn't reassure him. He could see the toll this fight was taking on her, and it worried him deeply. She had already sacrificed so much. For her people, for her freedom, and now for him. He couldn't let her down. When they finally reached the cabin, dusk was settling over the forest. The small structure was weathered but intact, nestled among towering pines that provided ample camouflage. Inside, they found a dusty cot, a rusted stove, and a few pieces of broken furniture. It wasn't luxurious. As Ethan unpacked their supplies, Lizira knelt by the fireplace, using her remaining energy to ignite a flame. The warmth spread quickly, dispelling the chill of the evening air. For the first time in days, they allowed themselves a brief moment of respite. But even here, safety was fleeting. It started with a faint buzzing sound, a low hum that grew louder until it filled the entire cabin. Lizira bolted upright, her eyes narrowing as she sensed the familiar energy signature. "They're here," she whispered urgently. "They've tracked us." Before Ethan could react, the walls of the cabin trembled violently. Outside, the shadows lengthened unnaturally, and the trees swayed as if caught in a sudden storm. Then came the unmistakable sound of boots crunching against leaves. Many boots. Ethan grabbed his rifle, motioning for Lizira to stay behind him. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. The door burst open with a deafening crash, revealing a squad of slavers armed to the teeth. Their leader stepped forward, clad in armor that gleamed menacingly under the moonlight. His helmet retracted to reveal a face devoid of emotion, a cold, calculating gaze fixed directly on Lizira. "Surrender," he commanded, his voice smooth yet threatening. "Hand over the Valeth, and your life will be spared." Ethan tightened his grip on the rifle, aiming it squarely at the leader. "You'll have to kill me first." The slaver smirked, unimpressed. "Your bravery is commendable, human, but futile." With a wave of his hand, the soldiers raised their weapons, surrounding them in a matter of seconds. Lizira stepped forward, placing herself between Ethan and the slavers. "Leave him out of this," she demanded, her voice laced with defiance. "Take me, and let him go." "No," Ethan protested, trying to push past her. "I'm not letting you do this." Lizira turned to him, her glowing eyes softening momentarily. "You've done enough, Ethan. Trust me, I know what I must do." Before either of them could act, a brilliant flash of light erupted from her body, engulfing the entire cabin. The slavers staggered back, shielding their eyes from the blinding radiance. When the light faded, Lizira stood transformed. A radiant being of pure energy, her form shimmering like liquid starlight. What are you doing?" Ethan stammered, staring at her in awe. "This is my true power," she replied, her voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre. "A gift, and a burden, of my people." With a sweeping gesture, she unleashed a torrent of energy that sent the slavers flying backward, their weapons disintegrating in their hands. Trees splintered, rocks shattered, and the very air seemed to crackle with raw power. It was a sight both beautiful and terrifying, leaving Ethan speechless. But the transformation came at a cost. As the dust settled, Lizira collapsed to her knees, her glow dimming rapidly. Her human-like features returned, though she looked weaker than ever. "Lizira," Ethan rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms. "Are you all right?" She managed a weak smile, clutching the crystalline core tightly. "I am spent, but we survived. For now." Outside, the surviving slavers regrouped, retreating into the shadows. They hadn't been defeated, merely delayed. And as Ethan held Lizira close, he realized the battle was far from over. "We'll get through this," he promised, his voice firm despite the uncertainty looming ahead. Together. Though battered and bruised, their resolve remained unshaken. Whatever challenges lay in store, they would face them side by side. The quiet aftermath of the battle was both eerie and sobering. The forest, once alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant wildlife, now felt unnaturally silent. Ethan sat by the fire in the cabin, his hands trembling as he held a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Across from him, Lizira lay on the dusty cot, her breathing shallow and uneven. Her luminous skin had lost its usual glow, replaced by an almost translucent pallor. She looked fragile, as though one wrong move might shatter her entirely. Ethan couldn't stop replaying the events of the night in his mind. The blinding flash of light, the sheer power Lizira had unleashed, and the way she had collapsed afterward. It wasn't just exhaustion that weighed on her. It was something deeper, more profound. He could see it in her eyes when she finally opened them. A mixture of sorrow, determination, and resignation. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need to talk." He set the cup aside and moved closer, kneeling beside her. "You should rest. You've done enough for today." "No," she said firmly, though her voice lacked strength. "There isn't much time left. I need you to listen." Her words sent a chill down his spine. "What do you mean?" "You're going to be fine. We'll figure this out together." Lizira shook her head gently, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "You don't understand. Using my full power comes at a cost. My essence, it's fading. I won't last much longer." Ethan's heart sank. "No, that's not true. You're strong, Lizira. You can pull through." She managed a faint smile, reaching out to touch his hand. "You've been so kind to me, Ethan. So brave. But there are some things even courage cannot change. This is my fate, to protect what remains of my people, no matter the cost." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes, but he blinked them away angrily. "Then let me help you. There has to be another way. Maybe the core." "The core holds knowledge, not salvation," she interrupted softly. "It's meant for humanity, for your world. A gift, if you choose to accept it." Ethan frowned, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means," she paused, gathering her strength, "my people made mistakes, terrible ones, that led to our downfall. We allowed greed and exploitation to destroy us. But Earth, it still has hope. If humans learn from our failures, they can avoid repeating them. The core contains everything: our history, our technology, our warnings. It's up to you to share it wisely. Ethan swallowed hard, struggling to process her words. You're asking too much. I'm just a farmer. I don't know how to handle something like this. You're more than that, she insisted, her voice growing weaker. You've shown me that humans are capable of kindness, of sacrifice. If anyone can carry this burden, it's you. Before he could argue further, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the crystalline device. Its surface shimmered faintly, pulsating with a soft, rhythmic glow. She placed it in his hands, closing his fingers around it. Promise me, she murmured. Promise me you'll use it to help others, not to harm. Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. I promise. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting golden light through the cracks in the cabin walls, Lizura grew quieter. Her breathing became labored, and her grip on consciousness slipped in and out. Ethan stayed by her side, holding her hand tightly, refusing to leave her alone. Tell me about your world again, he said softly, hoping to keep her talking. What was it like? She smiled faintly, her gaze drifting toward the window. Beautiful. The forests were alive with light. The rivers sang as they flowed. My people danced beneath twin moons, celebrating life and balance. But we forgot the lessons of harmony. And now, all that remains is memory. Her voice trailed off, and for a moment, Ethan thought she had fallen asleep. Then, with surprising clarity, she spoke again. Thank you, Ethan Cole, for believing in me, for fighting alongside me. You've given me hope, not just for myself, but for all beings who seek peace. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ethan leaned closer, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. Don't give up, Lizura, please. But she didn't respond. Her glowing eyes dimmed, and her hand went limp in his. For a long moment, Ethan simply stared at her, willing her to wake up, to say something, anything. But deep down, he knew it was over. Hours passed before Ethan found the strength to move. He wrapped Lizura's body in a blanket, carrying her outside to a secluded clearing surrounded by ancient trees. Using the last reserves of her energy, she had created a final barrier, a protective dome of light that would shield her resting place from harm. It pulsed faintly, a beacon of remembrance amidst the wilderness. Kneeling beside the dome, Ethan placed the crystalline core at its base. I'll honor your wishes, he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I'll make sure your story is told. As he stood to leave, he noticed something strange. The plants around the clearing began to glow faintly, their leaves shimmering with the same ethereal light that had once emanated from Lizura. It was as if her essence had merged with the earth, leaving behind a piece of herself in the natural world. Back at the cabin, Ethan packed the few remaining supplies, preparing to return to his farm. The slavers hadn't returned, but he knew it was only a matter of time. Still, he refused to run forever. With the core safely tucked into his jacket pocket, he vowed to honor Lizura's legacy, to share her story and ensure humanity learned from her people's mistakes. As he walked through the forest, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the trees, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Lizura's sacrifice had taught him that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could endure. And though she was gone, her presence lingered, in the memories they shared, in the lessons she imparted, and in the promise he had made to carry her message forward. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change not just his life, but the future of humanity itself. Months passed since that fateful day in the forest. Life on Ethan's farm had returned to a semblance of normalcy, though nothing felt truly ordinary anymore. The fields were still lush and green, but now they seemed to glow faintly under certain lights, a subtle reminder of Lizura's lingering presence. Every time Ethan walked past the clearing where he had laid her to rest, he paused for a moment, his heart heavy with gratitude and loss. But life moved forward, as it always did. And so did Ethan, carrying not just the weight of his grief, but also the responsibility she had entrusted to him. The crystalline core sat safely hidden in a small wooden box beneath his bed, its soft pulsations a constant reminder of the promise he had made. He hadn't yet shared it with anyone. Instead, he spent countless nights studying its surface, trying to decipher its secrets. At first, it seemed impenetrable, a smooth, opaque crystal that offered no clues about how to unlock its contents. But one evening, as Ethan traced his fingers along its edges, something changed. The core began to hum softly, glowing brighter until it illuminated the entire room. A holographic projection emerged from its center, displaying swirling images and symbols unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Slowly, words formed in English, translating themselves as if the device had adapted to his understanding. The message was clear. The core contained a vast archive of knowledge, histories, technologies, philosophies, all designed to guide humanity toward a better future. But it also came with warnings. Stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen due to greed, corruption, and environmental destruction served as cautionary tales. Each entry was accompanied by detailed accounts of what went wrong and how those mistakes could be avoided. Ethan realized then that this wasn't just an artifact. It was a gift, a blueprint for survival. And it was up to him to share it responsibly. Inspired by Lizira's teachings, Ethan began advocating for change within his community. At first, people dismissed him as eccentric, especially when he started talking about sustainability and interstellar ethics. But over time, his persistence paid off. He organized workshops at the local town hall, sharing insights from the core without revealing its true origin. Farmers learned new techniques to preserve soil health, while businesses explored eco-friendly alternatives to traditional practices. Word spread quickly, and soon Ethan found himself addressing larger audiences online. His posts about sustainable living gained traction, sparking debates across social media platforms. Some skeptics accused him of fabricating stories or exaggerating facts, but others listened and acted. Scientists and researchers took notice, particularly after Ethan anonymously sent samples of data extracted from the core. These fragments hinted at revolutionary advancements in renewable energy, medicine, and agriculture. One breakthrough came when a team of physicists analyzed traces of alien technology embedded in the core's structure. They discovered patterns suggesting the potential for clean, limitless energy sources, something humanity desperately needed. Though cautious, the scientific community couldn't ignore the implications. Governments around the world began funding research initiatives based on Ethan's findings, eager to harness these discoveries for the greater good. Despite the growing attention, Ethan remained humble. He refused interviews or public appearances, preferring to let the ideas speak for themselves. "I'm nobody special," he often said when pressed. "Just someone who got lucky enough to stumble upon something important." But deep down, he knew better. This wasn't luck, it was destiny. Lizira had chosen him for a reason, trusting him to carry her message forward. And every step he took felt like a tribute to her memory. On quiet nights, Ethan would sit outside under the stars, staring up at the endless expanse above. Sometimes, he swore he saw a faint glow among the constellations, a shimmering light that pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. It reminded him of Lizira's radiant form during their final battle, her essence merging with the universe itself. "Is that you?" he whispered one night, half-jokingly, "still watching over us?" He didn't expect an answer, but as if in response, the glow brightened momentarily before fading back into the darkness. Whether it was real or just his imagination didn't matter. What mattered was the feeling it left behind, a sense of peace, of connection, of hope. Years later, Ethan's efforts bore fruit in ways he never could have imagined. Communities worldwide embraced sustainable practices, reversing decades of environmental damage. New technologies powered by clean energy transformed industries, reducing humanity's reliance on finite resources. Even international conflicts diminished as nations collaborated to tackle global challenges together. And through it all, Ethan continued sharing Lizira's story, not as fiction, but as inspiration. Her courage, her sacrifice, and her unwavering belief in humanity became a beacon of hope for generations to come. Schools taught her tale alongside Earth's history, reminding students of the importance of balance, empathy, and stewardship. Though Ethan eventually grew old and frail, his spirit lived on in the legacy he helped create. On his final day, surrounded by friends and family, he gazed out the window at the starry sky one last time. The familiar glow appeared again, brighter than ever, filling the room with warmth. "Thank you, Lizira," he murmured, a peaceful smile on his lips. "You gave me purpose and hope." As his eyes closed for the last time, the glow lingered briefly before fading away, leaving behind only the gentle hum of crickets and the rustle of leaves. Somewhere far beyond the stars, Lizira's people watched silently, proud of the impact their daughter had made on a once ordinary farmer and the planet he called home. In the end, her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. Through Ethan, her message reached countless lives, proving that even in the vastness of the cosmos, compassion and unity could transcend boundaries. Humanity wasn't perfect, but thanks to Lizira, it had taken its first steps toward becoming something greater.